Whoa.
Wolf, Toon Link, and Jigglypuff didn't appear in Brawl's Subspace Emissary due to barely making it into the roster. Unused text in Smash 4 implies that Hyrule Temple and Gamer were going to be unlockable stages. Sakurai wanted Geno from Super Mario RPG to appear in Brawl, but instead he appeared as a Mii costume in Smash 4. Ryu is the first fighter to have 2 final smashes. The home run stadium in Brawl loops after 40,000 feet. Brawl was Samus's first spoken lines, with her Zero Suit form delivering a few spoken taunts. All the other previous instances of her speaking were text and not actual audible speech. Miyamoto approached Sakurai about adding two-dimensional Pac-Man to Brawl, but Sakurai stated that the idea was too far-fetched. Captain Falcon and Ness are the only characters in Smash 64 to not have stages from their respective series. The text written along the platforms in Hyrule Temple stage reads Smash Brothers in Hylian, but couldn't be read until Smash 4. According to Sakurai, Bowser Jr. was nearly removed from the Smash 4 roster before the final release. Bowser is the only returning Brawl character to not have their victory theme reused in Smash 4. Half the cast of Star Fox Assault couldn't return to voice their characters for Brawl. Falco, Peppy, Panther, Leon, and Wolf are all voiced by new talent. There's an unused clip of Mario saying, "Let's go!" in Melee's game files. It's presumed to be left over from the final smashes that were planned for the game. Mr. Game & Watch's moves represent 19 different Game & Watch games. Many elements of Solid Snake are actually taken from Naked Snake, or Big Boss. For example, he sometimes shapes the C4 like a butterfly. Hideo Kojima added Snake to Brawl's roster because his son wanted to see one of his father's creations in Smash Bros. Yoshi's Super Dragon Trophy in Brawl is missing its saddle. The announcer in Brawl is Pat Cashman, who is also known for the Bill Nye theme song. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Pokemon Trainer has unused jumping animations, presumably intended to be used during the Subspace Emissary stages. Charles Martinet's name is spelled wrong in the N64 credits. Donkey Kong's official artwork for Smash 64 is mirrored, as the DK on his tie is backwards. The texture of the Metroid Assist Trophy in Brawl has a small Mr. Saturn from Earthbound or Mother 2. It can't be seen in-game, and it's unknown why it's present. Mewtwo, Bowser, and King Dedede were originally planned for Smash 64. Project M is a mod for Brawl to make it play more like Melee. Unfortunately, on December 1st of 2015, the team announced that they would no longer be working on the mod. While working on Project M, the team discovered a random bug in Brawl that causes inputs to take 0 to 2 frames to register. Captain Falcon has the most skins in Smash 64, with 6 different palettes. Yoshi also has 6, but only 4 are available without cheats. Excluding unlockable characters, the N64 character select screen has characters in order from their respective game releases, starting with Mario and Donkey Kong and ending with Fox and Pikachu. The fighting polygon team is called the Dummy Corps in the Japanese versions of Smash 64. Smash 64 was originally going to be a Japan exclusive, but after the fighting game saw more popularity than expected, the game became localized for an international release. Motion controls in Brawl were hard to work into the game, and instead the focus became the Wii's internet capabilities. Mega Man's color swaps are all based on colors and abilities from previous Mega Man games. Lucina is the first female unlockable Smash character, not including Bowser Jr.'s skins. The Flying Man had both 2D and 3D models, but the 3D models were removed to lessen the strain on the 3DS hardware. Ice Climbers were also removed from Smash 4 due to being straining on the 3DS hardware. Early trailers for Melee show Samus's grapple beam more slender than the finished product. Game & Watch has a glitch known as Kamikaze in Melee. If they absorb 3 powerful attacks and use Oil Panic on a shielding opponent, they'll be launched backwards and killed instantly. There's a hidden rice ball in Melee's On It stage. Sonic can outrun the big blue vehicles if he has the bunny hood equipped. Melee's Jigglypuff is the only character to change voice actors based on language settings. Luigi is the only original Smash Bros. Character not to appear in the Melee intro. Link and Young Link both use the same model for the hook shot. Smash Bros. Melee had a production period of 13 months, where Sakurai would often cut his weekends short to work on the game. Even after the release of Brawl, Sakurai still considered Melee to be the sharpest title in the series. The original box art for Melee didn't have Link or Pikachu, only Mario being attacked by Bowser. Red Captain Falcon's jacket in Melee was supposed to say Hellhawk on the back. One of Mario's skins in Smash 4 is based on his appearance in the 1991 title NES Open Tournament Golf. All the original characters for Smash 4 were decided before development, meaning Greninja was chosen before X and Y's released and wasn't chosen based on popularity. The Metroid trophy has a reflection of the space station from Super Metroid. Kirby's dark blue skin is based on Meta Knight's appearance without his mask. Both Sonic and Snake were intended to appear in Melee, but due to time constraints, they wouldn't make an appearance until Brawl. King Dedede is voiced by game creator Masahiro Sakurai himself in every Smash Bros. Appearance and the Nintendo 64 title Kirby 64: The Crystal Stars. The sprites used for rupees in the first Zelda were taken from the game Cluku Land, but the sprite represented gold ingots in the game. Zelda NES is the first home console game to use an internal battery to save game files. The enemy Pole's voice can be defeated by using the second controller on the Famicom's microphone. As stated in the instruction manual, the enemy hates loud noises. During a Q&A with Nintendo's official American Twitter, Reggie Fils-Aimé revealed his favorite Zelda is A Link to the Past. Link's Awakening for the Game Boy was originally supposed to be a port of A Link to the Past before becoming its own project. The harp in Skyward Sword is the same harp used by Sheik in Ocarina of Time. The Puffstool enemy in Minish Cap is a reference to the Pikmin enemy of the same name. A version of Lost Woods can be found within the Minish Cap's games files. It's unknown why it's present and it goes unused. The cartoon animations used in Wand of Gamelon were outsourced to Russian animators and flown to the US. Ganon's laugh in Zelda 2 is a slowed down version of Soda Popinski's laugh from Punch-Out! So far, Zelda 2 is the only official side-scrolling Zelda, and the Philips CDI games aren't considered official by Nintendo. The magic hammer from Link to the Past is called the MC Hammer in Japanese releases, in reference to the rapper of the same name. Concept art for A Link to the Past depicts Zelda in futuristic attire. Because the first Zelda was originally supposed to take place in the past, present, and future, it's only assumed this idea may have been reused in early concepts for Link to the Past. Much like the Ocarina of Time remake, Majora's Mask was remade with the same bugs and glitches to give the first-time players the same experience to those who played it on the N64. Originally, the 3 days in Majora's Mask was going to be a week, but developers thought it would be annoying trying to remember what events occurred during each day, and shortened the time. During the development of Ocarina of Time, the market was called Downtown. Unused masks found in Majora's Mask's data suggest that Skull Kid would have worn them to take on the form of Link. In Link Between Worlds, the Majora's Mask can be seen on the wall of Ravio's shop. Also in Ravio's shop is a portrait of Link's uncle from A Link to the Past. Originally in Ocarina of Time, Epona was going to be called using a reed whistle. This concept went unused until the 2006 release of Twilight Princess. All of the citizens of Skyloft are designed after birds, hence why Groose has the features of a goose. A reference to the film Titanic can be found in the Skipper's Retreat in Skyward Sword. Majora's Mask was planned for a release on the IQ Player, the Chinese version of the N64. It's assumed that Majora's Mask's dark tones didn't make it past the censorship laws. Ballad of the Goddess played backwards sounds like Zelda's lullaby. According to one of the gossip stones, the all-night mask is used as some sort of torture device to deprive sleep. During development of Ocarina of Time, the Stalfos looked more like human, or Hylian, skeletons. The Japanese versions of Majora's Mask used to have 3 save slots instead of 2, but at the cost of not having any owl statues to save. There's unused animations for the mailbox in Minish Cap, implying that it would serve the same function as the mailboxes in Wind Waker. Sachi Matsumoto does the voice of Wind Waker Link, and is the same voice actor who did Skull Kid in the N64 titles. Link's crossbow training was the first game to use and be paired with the Wii Zapper. Majora's Mask had the least amount of main dungeons in a Zelda game, sitting at 4. Link's crossbow training was originally going to have Link travel to the future, thus making sense that he can use guns, but the development team immediately scrapped this idea. The 3 goddess statues in Wind Waker are a reference to the blue, red, and yellow Pikmin. The Wind Waker menu has a 7-minute day-night cycle, beginning at whatever time the GameCube internal clock is set to. Concept art for Sheik was drafted for Twilight Princess, but went unused until Smash Bros. Brawl. Fire arrows can be found within Twilight Princess's game files, but they aren't programmed to function. Twilight Princess originally had magic, as seen in a screenshot on the box, and was going to be required for Link to use his wolf form. Twilight Princess had a few leftovers from Wind Waker, like the Waker itself and bomb flowers. When finished with Twilight Princess, the development team filled Hyrule Field with Miis to relax after the development period. Zant and Girahim were originally not going to be playable in Hyrule Warriors, but were added to the roster after fan feedback. Miyamoto originally wanted a party system in Link to the Past, having the player switch between 3 different characters. Twilight Princess on Wii was Link's first appearance as right-handed, as it was the series' first motion-controlled game. Yosuke Hayashi, Hyrule Warriors producers, stated he considered Hyrule Warriors the official Zelda fan game. Link yells, "Come on!" when using the command melody in Wind Waker, marking the first time we hear Link speak actual words. Real-world constellations can be seen in the Wind Waker skybox, like the Big Dipper and Orion. An island shaped like a Gamecube was supposed to appear in Wind Waker, but the concept went unused until Phantom Hourglass. The development for Majora's Mask 3D happened immediately after Ocarina of Time 3D was released. Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons are the only 2 Zelda games to intertwine, giving bonuses to the player for playing one before the other. The Twilight Realm was originally black and white in early trailers of Twilight Princess, and Midna's hair was a different color. Breath of the Wild isn't named after an item or person like other Zelda titles because the game is intended to encapsulate the feeling of adventure the original Zelda gave. The original design for TF2 was much more realistic than its cartoonish final design, similar to the original Team Fortress and Counter-Strike. If a scout is blown up, there's a 1 in 100 chance that a dove will fly out of its body, in reference to the Meet the Medic short. The SMG weapon was originally intended for the Scout class, as seen in the first trailer for TF2, and the game files for the SMG are still TF2 Weapon SMG Scout to this day. Grenades were removed from the final game due to developers believing that players would just spam them. The cosmetic item, Dr. Woe, is a reference to the 11th Doctor from the BBC sci-fi series Doctor Who is often seen wearing a bow tie and a fez. The Soldier rocket launcher, the original, uses remastered sounds from the first Quake. The candy cane weapon has a level of 25, referencing the 25th of December, aka Christmas. Part of the Liberty launcher is cracked, in reference to the crack in the Liberty belt. Due to its similarity to the Atom Harvester from BioShock, Valve cannot sell the Vita saw in the Manco store. The AppSap Sentry Sapper is Wheatley from another Valve game, Portal 2. The characters Spy and Pyro are both voiced by Dennis Bateman, and Demoman and Heavy are voiced by Gary Schwartz. The idea for the Spy class came from a glitch that made enemy players appear to be on your team in Quake. The melee weapon, the Golden Frying Pan, was sold for $5,500 when it was first put on the Steam market, due to its rarity at the time. One of the Scout's voice lines after using the Sandman on an enemy is "Ding dong!" in reference to the Crazy Church Guy from Left 4 Dead, who says this while ringing the church bell. Both Scout and Crazy Church Guy are voiced by Nathan Vetterline. A melee weapon for the Pyro class that was scrapped, known as the Branding Iron, is modeled but not textured in TF2's game files. There's an unused audio clip for when a student you're coaching dies in-game. The Rooftop Rebel set is based on the Hunter from Left 4 Dead. The soldier's voice actor, Rick May, also provided his voice for Peppy Hare in Star Fox 64. One of the unused textures for the Duck Journal contains the phrase, "Let's eat," in reference to the Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic, Chica. The medic's hometown was originally Stoutgard, before it changed to Rottenburg in the Two Cities update. The Siberian Sophisticate adds a barcode to the back of the Heavy's neck, in reference to Agent 47 from the Hitman series. The Carlton Taunt is a reference to the dance that the character Carlton does in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The Spy Knife, Your Eternal Award, is reference to the knife Jafar uses in Aladdin. Early versions of TF2 contain a file called female_head_black.btf, which started the Is Pyro Female theory. The Box Trot Taunt is a reference to the Metal Gear series' stealth mechanic of hiding in boxes to avoid being seen. The box in the Box Trot Taunt has some Japanese written on it, and when translated, it reads, "The spy is in this box." The Toowoomba Tunic is a reference to Link's tunic from The Legend of Zelda. At one point, Valve team members referred to sticky bombs as wind bombs, as they were perceived as overpowered at the time. The formation of the red and blue teams canonically in TF2 is due to brothers Redman and Blutarch Man fighting over plots of land handed down to them by their deceased father. Out of all the Meet the series, the blue team member has only been featured as a main character in Meet the Spy. After the release of Meet the Spy, the sniper's model was updated, giving him a scar on his cheek due to the cut the spy gave him, as seen in the short film. The voice actor for the sniper and the voice of GLaDOS from Portal are married in real life. The buffalo steak sandwich was originally going to be a hallucinogenic peyote cactus, but playtesters felt a man dressed in Native American headdress punching people while under the influence of hallucinogens may be considered offensive. The sticky bomb launcher is based on an unused Half-Life 2 weapon that was going to serve the same function of attaching to enemies and surfaces. Valve has a working sentry turret in the lobby of their office. Gabe Newell's favorite class is the Spy. The Sniper, the Classic, is based on the sniper rifle from Team Fortress Classic. Occasionally, when using a teleporter, a loaf of bread will appear, in reference to the short film Expiration Date. In the TF2 closed beta, the Spy could have flame-resistant suits that would either reduce or entirely negate fire damage. The War Goggles item is a reference to the Team Fortress Classic Heavy. Many people online have drawn similarities between the Scout and the ShamWow guy, so Scout was given voice lines to reference this similarity.
If you order now, I'll throw in a second beating, absolutely free.
While holding his disguise kit and looking up, the Spy appears to be resembling a crab due to a model glitch. Valve opted not to fix this glitch due to its popularity. The map used for Meet the Medic is an edited version of the Badwater Basin. The original design for Demoman was a typical Scottish person with pale skin and red hair, but Valve felt that the character lacked originality and wasn't separated enough from the other classes. Inside the virtual viewfinder is a screen that says "Game Over." Natasha's wind-up sound is used in Left 4 Dead 2 for the forklift. The spy item Familiar Fez is a reference to the Austin Powers character Mustafa. Redmond Man can be seen in the Man Manor map at the last objective. There are 5 unused death sounds for the scrapped civilian class. Here's all of them at the same time. Series creator Hidetaki Miyazaki would frequently read books beyond his reading level as a child, leaving him to fill in the blanks of misunderstanding, which inspired the minimalistic and heavily implied story of Dark Souls. Namco has offered anyone who can summarize the Dark Souls story $10,000 to make a video on the lore. The winner, Steve Dixon, made the video Biography of the Chosen Undead, the Dark Souls story. Crystal Lizard from Demon Souls' model can be found within Dark Souls game files, most likely as a placeholder for the updated model used in the game. Kirk's Thorn armor is based on the Trial of 77 Rings from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Miyazaki and Daisuke Satake liked the concept and decided to add thorns to the rings. Darkmoon Nidus' armor set originally belonged to a player class known as Pagan Knight, which was removed due to balancing issues. Cut dialogue from the Artorias of the Abyss DLC implies that Artorias isn't actually human and is slowly losing control of his mind due to corruption. The crystal statues found throughout the Depths, Crystal Caves, and Duke Archives are the bodies of players who have died due to being cursed. Andre of Astoria was originally supposed to play a more pivotal role in the main story, moving a statue out of the way to let the player enter a passage to the catacombs. The possessed tree in Darkroot Garden was originally supposed to attack the player, instead of just blocking the way. Crossbreed Priscilla has unused standing and sitting animations for when she was intended to be an ally during development. 3 unused rings can be found within the Dark Souls game data: the Ring of Displacement, the Ring of Blind Ghosts, and the Ring of Condemnation. Miyazaki is a huge Harry Potter fan, which is why the Duke's Archives is based on the moving staircases in Hogwarts. The pendant gift serves no purpose in the main story and was added to trick players. However, when Miyazaki plays, he always picks it or nothing as a starting gift. Shiva of the East has unused dialogue, stating he's been looking for the Chaos Blade for ages, and if the player obtains it, Shiva will go as far as to attack the player for it. There's an unused miracle called Escape Death that would let the player die but keep their souls. It was likely removed due to making the game unbalanced by removing the consequences for death. Though Dark Souls is the spiritual successor to Demon Souls is the spiritual successor to another game called Kingsfield, another From Software game. New Londo was formerly a city that was flooded to prevent the spread of the Abyss. While exploring the ruins, the player can encounter banshees that are clutching their babies, presumably killed in the flood. Oscar, Knight of Astoria, was originally supposed to help the player in Darkroot Garden, but instead was given a smaller role of giving the player the Estus Flask and Dungeon Key. Dark Souls was going to be called Dark Ring, but it's pretty obvious why they couldn't go with that name.
It's a euphemism for a butthole.
In Prepare to Die Edition, the player has the chance to save Sif from the Abyss. Doing so changes the cutscene before the player fights them, portraying Sif as more hesitant to fight. The Obsidian Sword is the only area of effectability that hits enemies on lower levels. Wearing a helmet that covers the player's face reduces arrow headshot damage. Demon Fire Sage is weak to fire damage and deals magic damage despite being on fire. Equipping the Slumbering Dragon Crest ring and attacking Go the Blind Archer will result in an easy fight, due to the ring muffling all sound the character makes. Lloyd's Talisman puts mimics to sleep, allowing players to take whatever item is in the chest. A series of unused icons, including an hourglass, yellow soapstone, and 2 different keys, are presumably used as placeholders. An alternate black eye orb was removed from the final game and was intended to be used to invade the traitor Shiva to get the stolen Chaos Blade back. Petrus of Thorolund and Rickard of Vinheim both have fully complete and functional sets of armor, despite not being attainable by regular means. Calamite originally had different proportions and color. The Bed of Chaos originally had insect-like wings and a muddy, darker palette, implying the boss would be more mobile than its final design. Black Iron Tarkus's armor and sword were described as incredibly heavy and can only be wielded by him, in reference to Guts from Berserk. There was originally a leveling system that allowed the player to remove stats in order to gain soft humanity. Out of all the hollow corpses in Dark Souls, only 10 of them are women, and one of which that isn't a specific referenced character found with twin humanities in Lower Undeadburg. Marvelous Chester was also pulled by Manus from his timeline, just like the main character. Chester describes his era as Gothic Victorian, which is the theme from another From Software title, Bloodborne. There are unused attack and death animations for Kingseeker Frompt and Darkstalker Cave, implying the characters would have been killable. This is likely removed due to Frompt being required to get to the endgame. Despite being 2 separate universes, Patches the Hyena appears in both Dark Souls and Demon Souls, serving the same function in both games. Unused dialogue from Ingward suggests the player would have had to fight a cut boss known as the Undead King Jaril to get the key to the seal. Despite its name, the 4 Kings fight can actually produce more or less than 4 kings at a time. It's possible to skip the Ceaseless Discharge fight with enough vitality, health, and fire resistance to run across the lava the boss produces. Black Iron Tarkus is one of few summoned NPCs that can actually kill a boss without any help from the player.
at least on the first playthrough. Tarkus can defeat the Iron Golem while the player just sits back. Another reference to Berserk is Artorias' armor, which bears a striking resemblance to Guts' Berserk armor. A number of the bosses are skippable, like the Tauros and Capra demons, or other hidden bosses like Stray Demon and Dark Sun Gwendolyn. Unlike Demon Souls that gain its following gradually through word of mouth, Dark Souls became an instant hit, selling over 1.6 million copies within a month of its release. The Sanctus, Effigy Shield, Blood Shield, and Black Iron Great Shield were all designed from a fan contest and put in the game. Miyazaki isn't happy with how the Gwyn fight turned out. It was meant to challenge every build the player could possibly choose, but most players just exploit parrying. Many fans speculate there is a way to spare Sif and receive his sword as a reward. Cut content implies that the player could have joined a covenant with Velka, which ultimately either combined with or became the Dark Moon Covenant. Smaug was originally supposed to be one of the 4 knights, but Miyazaki liked the character so much that he made the character a heretic who wanted to join the knights. The Ancient Dragon has a series of unused animations that imply that it would have been an enemy at one point. Guinevere has a series of talkie animations where the player would kiss the back of her hand, due to Miyazaki's love for the gesture.
According to the A Hat in Time Twitter, the smooch button was a last-minute addition, and was inspired by the analog dabbing of Yo Noid 2 Enter the Void. JonTron was originally going to voice the Moon Penguins, but in the final release of the game he placed the Owl security guard for Dead Bird Studio. In Mafia Town during the day, a golden bird can be seen near the golden bells. It's presumed that this is a reference to the golden birds found throughout Mario Sunshine that provide shine sprites when sprayed with water. There are over 28 different loading screens drawn by lead 2D artist Jenna Brown for almost every level in the game. Grant Kirkhope of Rare and Platonic fame did the music aboard Hat Kid's spaceship as a guest composer. Despite A Hat in Time's 3-year-long development cycle, a few of the members of the dev team never actually met in person, as the team spans 4 separate countries. Mick Lauer, aka Rice Pirate, provides his voice for miscellaneous subcon creatures and the Merchant. In the attic of Queen Vanessa's mansion, using the mask reveals an outline of Raz from Psychonauts, one of the games that inspired A Hat in Time. A Hat in Time's original Kickstarter goal was $30,000, but by the time the campaign was over, it had raised $296,360. Jonas Karlev is the original mind behind A Hat in Time and began development after feeling a lack of 3D platformers, especially from Nintendo. Karlev was originally the sole developer behind the project, but frequent delays of the game made him add more and more people to his roster, which eventually became Gears for Breakfast. Karlev didn't expect the success of A Hat in Time's Kickstarter, due to him feeling that Donkey Kong 64 ruined the 3D platformer genre with an overstimulating amount of collecting. Despite never removing them in-game, DJ Grooves has textured eyes under his sunglasses. Less than a month before the game's official release, Gears for Breakfast released a speedrunning event showcasing a few of the levels. Within 24 hours, over 130 speedrun submissions were added to speedrun.com for the event. Xander Mobus, best known for his role as the Smash 4 announcer, lends his voice to the conductor in the Battle of Birds. The Can's Hat Kid can kick aren't actually part of a physics engine, but instead is hand-coded and animated. The chapter Battle of the Birds went through many iterations before the final release. At first, the conductor segments were a completely different chapter called Trainwreck of Science. Then the chapter became about the rivalry between the filmmakers called The Last Bird Standing in 2016, before ultimately landing on the name Battle of the Birds. Chapter 4 was originally going to be called Sand and Snails and would take place in the desert. Developers felt the stage didn't work well with gameplay, so it was eventually reworked into Alpine Skyline. The goofy mafia the player chases in episode 2 of Mafia Town was originally an old man named Oldster. The character's model and a few animations are still in the game's files. Rough Patch, or Bushcat, is a removed enemy from A Hat in Time, but still remains within the game's files. It's presumed that due to its similarity to Snatcher, the character is part of the Subcon Valley. An entire floor was cut from Vanessa's manor, but still remains in the game without event or object prompts, making it unplayable. An unused Coco meter exists within the game's beta files and goes unused in the final game. A removed character known as Timmy was going to be featured in the game's co-op and New Game Plus modes, but both game modes went unused. The Ice Hat and Sprint Hat were originally going to be equipable badges, as seen within the beta. An unused Moon Tablet item can be found within the beta game files. Some partially unused icons featuring speedrun, co-op, and mod options can be found within A Hat in Time's files. A model for a character called Sandworm goes unused and is presumed to have been used in the cut Sand and Snail stage. The song Bubblegum Town made its way into the final game, despite originally being used for the cut Sand and Snail stage. An enemy called Snatcher Kid remains unused, but is stored under the floor where it was going to appear. The official Gears for Breakfast YouTube channel released a 5-hour video compilation of a majority of the songs featured in the game. Voice actor Sung
Seungwon Cho, aka Pro ZD, provides his voice for both the Express Owls and Spaceship Intercom. Fan favorite, the Snatcher, is voiced by Luke Sizemore, aka Youngtown. The Time Rift segments are heavily inspired by the Floodless stages in Mario Sunshine and the mental worlds of Psychonauts. Speedrunning options were added to the game during the beta period, due to many early players saying they could see a speedrunning community around the game. The first two mods added to the Steam Workshop for A Hat in Time are Raz's Hat that allows the player to move on a telekinetic ball, and Lilac's Headpiece from Freedom Planet 2 that lets the player use a cyclone attack mid-air. The chapter Murder on the Owl Express had been completed as early as A Hat in Time's alpha release, but wasn't showcased until Gamescom 2017. The Murder on the Owl Express was inspired by a chapter in Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and there's even a reference to Zest T from one of the Express Owls, stating they lost their contact lens. The original concept for Murder on the Owl Express involved searching for clues with a magnifying glass, but designer Jonas Karlev didn't want to leave the mechanics unused for the rest of the game. Before the finger gun animation was decided upon for stealth sections, the original idea had Hat Kid walking around holding her cape like Batman or Dracula. Hat Kid wasn't originally going to be able to switch hats, just badges, but after fan feedback, the team wanted to give the player multiple cute hats with corresponding abilities. Dive boosting is a technique where the player jumps out of a dive right before hitting the ground, giving them a large speed boost. Hat Kid originally couldn't climb up walls before wall sliding, but developers felt like if the player missed a jump and a ledge grab, they should have the opportunity to save themselves. Badges originally functioned the way Yarn does, requiring a certain amount collected to unlock more. Entering the open garbage bins in Mafia Town gives Hat Kid stink effects. Though Oldster as a character never made it into the final game, he can be seen frozen in Queen Vanessa's mansion. Within 3 days of the game's release, A Hat in Time received an overall review of overwhelmingly positive on Steam. Workshop is available for A Hat in Time because of Jonas Karlev's avid support of modding. In the Last Bird Standing trailer for A Hat in Time, DJ Grooves is depicted saying lines that were eventually given to the nooses throughout Subcon Valley.
Be careful now. I don't want to see you meet a miserable end anywhere, but with me.
A Hat in Time was originally intended for Wii U, which is ironic considering the game is coming to both PS4 and Xbox One, but not the Switch. Though it's shown in the alpha trailer, freely diving and swimming underwater never made it into the final game, other than with the ice hat plunging. Just like Undertale, naming your character the same as another character in the game will prompt different responses, and using the name Gaster restarts the game. Deltarune is an anagram of Undertale. Undertale's title is in all caps, while Deltarune's is lowercase. If the player has played through once before, they can simply examine their bed after waking up in the beginning to end up in the Dark World without having to go to school. If the player reaches the Dark World within 8 minutes or uses the bed to skip there, they can find an item called the Wrist Protector that allows the player to hold C in order to skip dialogue, making for faster playthroughs. Attempting to use the cell phone in the Dark World will play the entry number 17 sound from Undertale. The sound that plays when examining the red door at the end of the game is also the entry number 17 sound, only slowed down. A lot of the songs in Deltarune follow the same leitmotif as the Gaster theme from Undertale. Losing the Lancer Susie fight multiple times will have them rebuild the death machine you designed just to blow it up. The doors used to teleport around the Dark World are the same as the door in Sans' room in Undertale. In the properties of the Deltarune survey_program.exe file, the version number is 0.6.6.6. Both Rules Card and Sham look very similar to WD Gaster, though there's no mention of the man who speaks in hands throughout Deltarune. The enemies in Deltarune are all based on game pieces, while the main antagonists are based on playing cards. Just like Undertale, the title bar of the game window becomes different things throughout the game, like Contact when doing the character creation, the Beginning when you're at the school, and the Return when you come back at the end. All of the gravestones in town read names of different amalgams from Alphys' lab near the end of Undertale. One of the amalgams in Undertale, Everyman, can be seen as graffiti in the alleyway with Alphys at the end of the game. During the Susie vs. Lancer fight, it's impossible to die as Lancer's attacks will begin to miss. Inspecting all of the beds in the card castle will give you the title of Level 1 Bed Inspector. Using the manual Ralsei gave the player during battle will cause the enemies to fall asleep, allowing the usage of the Pacify spell. Tossing the manual will prompt Ralsei to pick it up and put it back, but tossing it again destroys it and hurts Ralsei's feelings. Taking the broken cake and giving it to the blacksmith will prepare it as the top cake, the highest healing item in the game. Taking the top cake to the baker, where the broken cake was found, will reward you with infinite split cakes, which heal less but are endless. Standing on the circle next to the lake in the town will prompt an appearance from Onion San, who will allow you to name him. Scrolling through your stats will occasionally replace one of the stats with dog and an image of the annoying dog. The narrative of the Dark World is that it's all just a dream, so Chris's carbon fiber reinforced wooden sword is actually just a pencil. All of the items gathered in the Dark World become a single ball of junk once the player is returned to the Light World. In Undertale, the Deltarune is a symbol of the Dreamer family, a symbol that predates written history as a prophecy of an angel who has seen the surface, returning to the underground to depopulate the realm. In Deltarune, however, the symbol is instead a prophecy of a monster, human, and prince from the dark sealing the magic fountains and banishing the angel's heaven. During the shocking final scene where Chris rips out his own heart, the heart can still be controlled inside the cage by the player. Lancer, Rudin, Clover, Hathy, and Jevil are all designed by artist Kano Tynes. Toby Fox has stated on Twitter that Kano Tynes' art in 2012 is what inspired him to want to make an RPG in the first place. The RPG that eventually became Undertale came from his desire to make a game, and the concept with Kano's characters was made into Deltarune at the same time. Deltarune Chapter 1 had been done a while before its actual release. Toby Fox was just waiting on the Japanese translation to be finished. The Japanese translator for Deltarune, Kaiko Fukuichi, is the same translator for Undertale. Laura Shigehara performed the song Don't Forget during the ending credits. She's also known for composing for Plants vs. Zombies, the entire To the Moon soundtrack, as well as her own project, Raccoon. Deltarune's announcement was a surprise to fans on October 30th of 2018 on the official Undertale Twitter, but the announcement was vague, leaving many people to expect an upcoming Undertale 2. Despite not appearing in Chapter 1 of Deltarune, Papyrus's dialogue sound can be found within the game's files. Among a few unused graphics is Ralsei's manual that can actually be read through. It seems this was removed early on, as the manual doesn't mention the axe command and states TP can be restored through saving. There's a page in Ralsei's manual that mentions the possibility of a dog command where a dog has eaten all of your commands, you can't do anything for the rest of your life. These icons actually exist in the game's files. A set of flower shop lights corresponding with the colors of the flowers in the flower shop can be found within the game's files. The trees in the Scarlet Forest were originally going to be different colors. An early sketch of the beach area can also be found within Deltarune's files. There's unused UI elements within the game, presumably to display whose turn it is. An unused placeholder sprite for Chris can be found within the game, probably used to test character movement and collision. Unused portraits of Ralsei and Susie can be found within the game's files, but Susie is colored in like a darkener, while in the final game she's monochrome, as she is a lightener. The earliest concept art for Deltarune dates as far back as almost 2014. There's a hidden boss known as Jevil that can be found by collecting 3 key fragments after talking to a prisoner at the very bottom of the card castle. The first is with the shopkeeper in the fields, the second is in the forest, in a hidden path where the dancing figures are, and the last piece is the area above the checkerboard where you have to input the order of the rooms in the castle: diamond, heart, clover, spade. Once all pieces are gathered, repair them with the blacksmith and return to the prisoner for the hardest fight in the game. Beating Jevil violently will reward you with the best weapon in the game, whereas non-violently will award you with the best armor in the game. As stated in a twit longer Toby Fox posted after Deltarune's release, it apparently took years to put together Chapter 1 as a demo, with scripts dating back to 2015 and the initial concept way back in 2012. In the same twit longer, Toby states that the game will not have multiple endings like its predecessor and will have the same ending regardless of choices made while playing. Sans' eyeless face from Undertale is within the game's files, despite Sans not using this portrait in Deltarune. One of Chris's sprites in the Light World is a sliding sprite, despite there being nowhere to slide in the Light World. Temmie Chang, a character designer for Undertale and the inspiration for Temmie, lent her skills as a pixel artist for, in Toby Fox's words, basically everything that looked good. Deltarune is not a sequel to Undertale, as stated in a twit longer from Toby Fox. I will say that basically what you're seeing here is not the world of Undertale. Undertale's world and ending are the same as however you left them. If everyone was happy in your ending, the people in the Undertale world should still be happy, so please don't worry about those characters and that world. It will remain untouched. To rephrase that, Deltarune's world is a different one, with different characters that have lived different lives. A whole new story will happen. I don't know what you call this kind of game. It's just a game you can play after you complete Undertale if you want to. That's all. So much how Deltarune is Undertale rearranged, the story of Deltarune has the same characters as Undertale, but is a different story entirely. In early releases of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, the character Sonia from Sonic Underground can be seen on a playing card representing the Queen of Diamonds. The art was taken directly from DeviantArt and was only meant to be a placeholder, and has since been removed. Bayonetta was considered to be a player for Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, but developers felt the addition would affect the game's rating. Copies of Sonic 3D Blast were being sold alongside kids' meals at Jack in the Box until the release of Sonic Adventure, due to Sega believing that the higher quality of the new game would lessen people's desire to buy the older one. Sonic Advance 3 marks the last time Dean Bristow recorded his voice for Dr. Eggman, as voice lines are reused in Sonic Riders and Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. An unused to-call voice clip in Sonic Adventure DX state that the Super Sonic feature was available during regular gameplay. Sonic Adventure is the first Sonic game to feature DLC, as the Dreamcast had online capabilities right out of the box. The DLC included seasonal decorations, leaderboards, and the black market, as featured in Sonic Adventure 2. Within the Sonic Adventure game files, there's an image of a few Sega employees around a picture of an actual blue hedgehog. The loading screen for the Sonic Adventure demo still exists within the game's files. Sonic Team took a trip to Central and South America in order to prep for production of Sonic Adventure. Some pictures taken are used as textures in the final game. The Dreamcast disc for Sonic Adventure contains a folder called Extras that contain desktop backgrounds for Sonic characters featured in the game. Knuckles' theme, Unknown From Me, is rapped by Dread Fox, who also voices Parappa the Rappa. After the Casinopolis level and many other areas in Sonic Adventure, the player can see Cream the Rabbit very briefly. This is an interesting Easter egg, as Cream wasn't introduced until Sonic Advance. Sonic Adventure 2 was originally going to have an online leaderboard, and the game's files even contain a few countries' flags. Sonic Adventure 2 was given a mild lyrics ESRB warning due to the songs Deeper and Kick the Rock. Sonic is wearing soap shoes in the final version of Sonic Adventure 2 due to a brand deal with Sega and the shoe brand. In several of his jumping animation frames, Sonic is wearing his usual shoes and not his soap shoes. Though not included as a playable character, Big the Cat has several cameos in levels and cutscenes. The boxes in the Crazy Gadget stage of Sonic Adventure 2 are green in the Dreamcast version, but red in the ports. This may be due to the Xbox logo being a green X. Many cutscenes in Sonic Adventure 2 features characters cutting each other off. This is because the lines in Japanese are much shorter. Sonic and the Secret Rings was originally called Sonic Wildfire. Sonic and the Secret Rings started out as a port for Sonic 06, but developers needed a game to release on the Wii and wanted to focus on motion controls. Sonic was originally supposed to appear in the multiplayer mode of Shadow the Hedgehog. The Sonic CD disc is both a game disc and a music disc that can be played. The English script for Sonic Colors was partially written by Ken Pontag and Warren Graff, the writers for Happy Tree Friends. The North American Wii release of Sonic Colors misspells perform as preform. Sonic Drift 2 was released in North America as Sonic Drift 2, even though the first Sonic Drift hadn't gotten a release outside of Japan. Jaleel White, best known for his role as Steve Urkel, was originally going to be cast to voice classic Sonic in Sonic Generations, but Sega decided to go with a mute Sonic instead. Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel have a missing poster in the City Escape stage of Sonic Generations. Knights is the only non-Sonic character to appear in Sonic Generations. In 2008, Sonic Heroes was given a Guinness World Record for most playable characters in a platform game. The Sonic World level in Sonic Jam was originally a prototype of Sonic Adventure, but due to graphical limitations, the project was moved to the Dreamcast. Sonic Riders almost saw a Game Boy release, but Sega wanted the game to be more 3D, so the project was scrapped. Scrap Brain Zone in the first Sonic was originally called Clockwork Zone, but was most likely changed due to the W not existing in the Zone font. The concept for Sonic's gameplay came from creator Yuji Naka playing level 1-1 of Mario over and over again until he got the best speed. Early concept art of Werehog depicts Sonic as a Yeti. Story-wise, Sonic 06 is the only game where the villain successfully kills Sonic. Sonic X-treme is a skateboard or hoverboard demo akin to the Tony Hawk series, created by Visionscape Interactive as a pitch to Sega. It's believed that this demo is what inspired the Sonic Riders series. There's a great video about it in more detail by Unseen64 down in the description if you're interested. Also, to avoid confusion, there is another official Sonic game that was called Sonic X-treme, but is cancelled. The Speed Shoe theme in Sonic Lost World is just an instrumental of the Sonic Heroes theme. It took Sega around 8 months of reworking before they finally got the completed Green Hill Zone. After Sonic 06, Sonic Team began production of Sonic Adventure 3, which eventually became Sonic Unleashed, by building a new engine focused on animation and particle effects, known as the Hedgehog engine. The choice to release Sonic and Knuckles separately from Sonic 3 is what made room for the addition of competition mode. The Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast was conceived in 7 weeks to replace the recently cancelled Sonic X-treme. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is called Project Needlemouse in production. Shadow was supposed to die at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, but he was brought back due to being a fan favorite. Inspirations for Sonic and the Secret Rings include Prince of Persia, God of War, and Shadow of the Colossus. All of the rival characters in Sonic Generations are playable in Sonic Rivals. Sonic Advance was released on the Nokia phone/handheld N-Gage under the name Sonic N. Sonic Rivals was the first game not to be released in Japan. Sonic Riders is the first Sonic game to feature an animated intro cutscene since Sonic CD in 1993. Super Smash Bros. Brawl's development was delayed due to Sega changing their mind about not including Sonic in the roster, so the addition of the character took extra time. The project plan for Ultimate was finished in December of 2015 during the development of Smash 4's DLC fighters. Out of all 5 games, Ultimate has the shortest project planning in the series. Sakurai doesn't have as much of a hand in Ultimate's production as he did in Smash 4, but he admits that due to the vast amount of content in the game, his workload is about the same. Echo Fighters came from a demand for less similar characters, as fans of Smash 4 felt characters like Dark Pit and Lucina took up slots for completely new characters like, Despite being replaced by Kiefer Sutherland for Metal Gear Solid 5, David Hayter returns as Snake in Smash Ultimate. When Smash Ultimate was teased on March 8, 2018, the game was still under the working title Super Smash Bros. Without the Ultimate suffix. Smash Ultimate is currently the most pre-ordered Switch game, and the most pre-ordered Smash game in the series. Before Ultimate's release, some fans noticed that Mr. Game & Watch's Side Smash depicted him with a torch, loincloth, and feather on his head, in reference to the game Fire Attack, where a cowboy defends a fort with a hammer from fire-wielding natives. This left the company in some hot water, but Nintendo did promise to remove the references in an update, as it doesn't agree with their current day values. For the first time since Smash 64, the cover of Smash Ultimate has hand-drawn cover art instead of character renders. Kirby was chosen as the first character in World of Light because he was deemed the easiest character to learn, and it needed to make sense story-wise why he would survive. Sakurai has stated that Bayonetta and Palutena could have survived, but they're hard characters to learn, so they didn't make the cut. Games have higher damage output in 1v1s versus less damage in 4-player games to make the matches faster paced. For the first time since they were introduced, all Final Smashes have been shortened and are an animation, not an ability. Ice Climbers couldn't be included in Smash 4 because the 3DS hardware didn't support the character, but this isn't a problem anymore as the game is being released only on the Switch. Replays in Smash 4 became useless after a game update, but to circumvent this, for Ultimate, replays can be saved as MP4s instead of having to be uploaded to YouTube, like in 4. Sakurai has stated he never feels satisfied and always thinks he can do more when making a Smash game. He says, "I don't think I've ever made something I'm totally satisfied with. That feeling of doubt or wanting to do more is my engine to move forward and to make the next iteration." The Smash Ballad back in Smash 4 was not only to see what character would be released as DLC, but to see what characters fans wanted to add to Smash Ultimate, just without them knowing. Because Ultimate is a compilation of the past 4 games and is the largest Smash, there are over 30 different IPs all together in one game. Smash players will find that they start with only the OG characters from 64, so that character unlocking is streamlined and satisfying. Players can now directional air dodge for the first time since Melee. Sakurai was confident in Smash Ultimate's development when he knew that Sora and Bandai Namco would return to help with the project. King Dedede is still voiced by game director Masahiro Sakurai. Xander Mobus returns as the announcer for Ultimate, marking the first time one person has the role for 2 games, and with the announcement of Joker at the Game Awards, this marks the first time the announcer and a playable fighter share a voice actor. Larry, Wendy, Morton, and Lemmy are all voiced by Lani Minella, who's known for her work in World of Warcraft, Mass Effect, the good ones, and the 2018 God of War. Sakurai has stated the Smash Ultimate intro has lyrics to make it more unique from the other games. Sean Schimmel provides his voice for Lucario. He's also known as the voice of Goku. In previous titles, Lucas and Ness performed PK Starstorm as their final Smash, despite them never learning these techniques in their respective games. But for Ultimate, their final Smashes were updated to have the party. Yoshi's final Smash is a reference to his appearance in the Melee intro. The Sheikah text in the Temple stage and the Great Plateau stage says Smash Bros when translated. Snake's symbol is an exclamation mark instead of the fox emblem, probably due to the symbol's association with Metal Gear creator Hideo Kojima and his company Kojima Productions. Ultimate is the first game in the series where you pick a stage first in multiplayer matches. Sakurai chose to build off Smash 4 instead of creating a new game from the ground up so that he wouldn't have to cut any characters and could just rework them instead. World of Light in Japanese, Tomoshibi no Hoshi, backwards can be read as Hoshi no Kabi, the title of the Kirby series in Japan, even though the title was chosen before Kirby was decided to be the first playable character. Ridley's orange skin is a reference to the character's appearance on the copy of Super Metroid. Game & Watch's moveset represents over 18 different Game & Watch games. Marth has the most clone characters with Roy, Lucina, and Chrom. Marth has an English voice actor for the first time, Yuri Lowenthal, who's best known for his role as Sasuke Uchiha in the English dub of Naruto. Cloud and Bayonetta are, currently, the only characters to change their weapons depending on their skin. The floating islands in the background of Battlefield are the other battlefields from previous Smash games. Lucas and Ness's PK attacks now contain the graphics from their respective games. Link's arrows can now be picked up and thrown. One of Simon's win animations is a reference to the first Castlevania, where after getting the red orb, holding A and B makes Simon jump and whip. According to Sakurai's Twitter, all 5 DLC characters have already been chosen. Ultimate has over 900 music tracks, which makes sense that they added the iPod feature where you can plug in your headphones and listen to the soundtrack. Despite not having a new game in over 14 years, Captain Falcon has appeared in every Smash title to date. In October of 2018, there was an alleged leak revealed on 4chan and the original poster Snapchat of the full tapestry of characters. At this point, we know it was a fake, as only one character, Ken, out of the 8 shown, were real. Fingers crossed for Chorus Kids. Between Smash 4 and Ultimate, Peach has countless
encounter, Toad goes from being thrown in front against his will to being a hero defending the princess. Sheik's outfit is updated to look like the Breath of the Wild outfit that Link can wear. Snake was originally added to the Smash roster back in Brawl because Kojima's son wanted to see one of his dad's characters in Smash Bros. Over 2 weeks before Ultimate's release, the entire game was leaked online, marking the largest leak of a Switch game to date. The original source came from the Where's NX Discord, a server full of known Switch modders and hackers, but many sources attribute the leak to a store in Mexico that released a physical copy early.
Much like Undertale's main character, Frisk, the main character in Deltarune's gender is ambiguous, making it easier for the player to identify with the person they're playing as. Chris's Light World sprite has a very similar color palette to an unused player sprite found in the Undertale game files. Throughout the events of Deltarune Chapter 1, Chris has been given the nicknames Blue Person, Crisp, Chrissy, and Little Buddy. Chris and Chara both like chocolate. Chris takes chocolate kisses from Toriel's room without asking, and feels nostalgic when drinking hot chocolate at the cafe. Flushing the toilet multiple times in Toriel's house prompts Toriel to ask if Chris has been putting bath bombs in it again. Chris's pirouette animation is unique to the Jevil boss fight, marking it as the only custom action animation in Chapter 1. Chris has a history of being mischievous before the events of Deltarune, like hiding under Noelle's bed when she knew she was afraid of humans under the bed, and telling her that the mascot Icy was real. The glow shard item found at the beginning of the game has the description, "Sell at shops," but the item can be also used to spare a Rudin instantly, but it's consumed upon usage. The entities found at the beginning of the Dark World are referred to as wobbly things in the game files, and the one that attack the player are called evil wobbly things. Very fitting. Chris appears to be a conceptual combination of both Chara and Frisk, with similar color schemes and appearance. Also, Chris's names may be a combination of Chara and Frisk to make Chris, when the CH is substituted with a K, or maybe it's just Frisk rearranged minus the F, I don't know, names. When asking Toriel about Asriel at the end of the game, she mentions he likes the green egg-laying lizard from the game Super Smashing Fighters, which is a reference to Yoshi and his appearance in Super Smash Bros. During the drive to school, the player can see a Frogget, a returning Undertale character, in front of Braddy's house, despite the character never appearing again in Chapter 1. Undyne has both eyes in Deltarune, but is missing one during the events of Undertale. Gerson Boom's gravestone can be found in Hometown at the end of the game. The archaeologist from Undertale has a written book called Lord of the Hammer in the library, and History of Humans and Monsters that can be found on Toriel's bookshelf. If the player attempts to open Sans' house, they are greeted with, there's no response but the sound of the Trossel of Bones, in reference to Papyrus and his theme music, Bone Trossel. Ralsei's title changes to Fluffy Prince when the dainty scarf is equipped to him. If Chris stands close to Ralsei for a certain amount of time, he begins to blush. This doesn't work if he's facing downward, and there are also unused sprites of him moving while blushing. In regular dialogue portraits, Ralsei's horns are depicted pointing inward, but after he takes his hat off, they're depicted facing outward. Ralsei's lullaby in battle derived from the leitmotif of the song The Legend, the music from when he's explaining the prophecy of the three heroes. The survey_program uninstaller actually deletes whatever folder the program is in, which can cause issues depending on where the file is located. Attempting to equip Susie with the white ribbon causes her to refuse using it, saying, "Nope, I'm not in first grade anymore." Since all Darkeners have their dialogue portraits colored in and Chris doesn't engage with any dialogue throughout the game, Susie is the only character in the Dark World with a monochrome portrait. Susie is in the third character slot when she first joins the party, but when she rejoins, she's given the second party slot. During the Susie Lancer fight, Susie takes 70% less damage from Chris's and Ralsei's regular attacks. Searound is the only enemy who defeating it by knocking it out does not affect a no-harm run in Deltarune. After ringing the bell and sending the Starwalker bird away, if the player walks all the way back to the other side of the room, they can meet the original Starwalker. The King's Laugh is a slower version of Lancer's Laugh. There's a hidden NPC simply named Man in the forest that can be accessed by going back and forth between the areas to the right of the Starwalker bird. He offers a secret key item, an egg. This is the only item to not become something else or vanish when returning to the Light World. It can either be put into Asgore's fridge or dropped, prompting the message, "What egg?" It also shows up in subsequent playthroughs. When buying items at the bake sale, the vendors incorrectly ask for 40G instead of 40D, which is an understandable oversight as gold was the currency in Undertale. Interacting with the rock slide used to get into Castletown with Ralsei in your party will prompt him to mention how he has no idea how Lancer made it up there.
and suggests that maybe he rode his bike up. The field is the only area in the game that shows the title of the music when entering it. C round becomes K round by reaching the end of the checkerboard, but in order to get there, C round moved in a line and not on an angle, which is against the standardized rules of checkers. If the player walks left before the Susie Lancer fight, they can actually go out of bounds, and using the cell phone out there causes the game to crash. If the player selects all duck parts in the thrashing zone, they're given the unique dialogue when confirming, "This machine sucks ass. Is that okay?" If Chris eats the moss in the prison on the first floor and brings Susie back into the cell, she mentions how they didn't save any for her. The bathroom door in the second floor is called Royal Flush in reference to the poker hand of the same name. One of the holes in Lancer's room has a secret. If the player interacts with it, the game says, "You found 20 rupees in the hole." Unfortunately, it's not a useful currency around here, which may be a reference to the currency used in the Legend of Zelda series with a similar sounding name, rupees. Jevil's the only character in Deltarune Chapter 1 with actual voice acting during his fight, and the line, "Bye bye," is the only line in both Japanese and English to be the same. Jevil's full unused dance animation includes frames with him facing upward and downward. Equipping the Devil's Knife, the item you get from defeating Jevil violently, to Susie prompts the game to say, "Let the games begin," but attempting to give it to Ralsei prompts him to say, "It's too, evil," and he doesn't equip it. When receiving the Devil's Knife, Jevil becomes the item and says, "Take me and do your strongest," implying that the weapon is Jevil himself. It's actually impossible to level in Chapter 1 of Deltarune, as all the enemies run away after reaching 0 HP instead of dying, like in Undertale, so no XP can be granted. Visiting Noelle's dad in the hospital will unlock unique dialogue with her in front of the gates to her house. She questions why Chris visited in the first place, and how he usually isn't so chatty. According to cut dialogue strings in the game's code, the Ralsei dummy was originally going to be Ralsei himself. In the unused classroom, there's a pile of dust, which is most likely a reference to the rabbit enemies found in the forest that are based on dust bunnies. Dark candies are the only item in the game that can't be sold back for half price, being purchased for 40D but sold back for 13. If any dark candies are in the player's inventory when they return to the light world, the game mentions how the ball of junk smells like marshmallows. Much like Undertale, Deltarune is created using Game Maker Studio, a program originally created to give novice game designers access to custom drag-and-drop coding as an introduction to game design, but strong enough as an engine to be considered by developers for real retail games. This video isn't sponsored, I just like the program. In Undertale, a random fun value NPC can be found in Waterfall that alludes to Deltarune. If the fun value is set somewhere between 80 and 89, the player can talk to Clam Girl, who mentions her neighbor's daughter named Susie. In the Nintendo Switch version of the game, returning to the waterfall to talk to her prompts her to mention how you still haven't met Susie yet, and how the time you will is fast approaching, before becoming grayscale and vanishing like a gaster follow. Toby Fox actually directed a Japanese TV promo alongside artist Temi Chang for wrestler Kenny Omega titled Kenny's Quest. The short was supposed to play before the Wrestle Kingdom 13 main event, and uses music and visuals akin to the Undertale/Deltarune style Toby Fox is known for. The dragons in Skyrim aren't based on the traditional dragon design, with legs, arms, and a set of wings. Instead, they're closer to the design of a wyvern, with the wings being attached to the arms and not a separate set of appendages. At the top of the throat of the world, the highest point in Skyrim, the player can find an item called the Notched Pickaxe, referencing Minecraft creator Marcus Pearson, aka Notch. The pickaxe is similar to a regular pickaxe, but is enchanted with a +5 to smithing and a +5 shock damage. Disenchanting the pickaxe will give the player the unique enchantment Notched Pickaxe that can be used on other equipment. Dunmer, also known as Dark Elves, had ancestors originally known as Chimer. They were elves with golden skin and a radiant presence before being cursed to have red eyes and ashy skin by Azura after using Dwemer technology to become the Tribunal. Throughout all of Skyrim, there are only 3 Dark Elves without red eyes, the Nightingale Carlia and the Serethi sisters Avrusa and Aduri, implying that Azura's curse might be fading. In the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, before the exit, there lies a table with a map of Skyrim on it that Astrid can be commonly found examining. After every Dark Brotherhood contract is completed, a new dagger will be placed in the map at that contract's location. The Dragonstone is a map of all dragon burial grounds in Skyrim, which the player gives to Farengar in Whiterun after finding it in Bleak Falls Barrow. But all the way in Riverwood, Delphine has her own nearly identical map of dragon burials, despite her never receiving the stone from the Dragonborn. Despite being at its lowest point of influence when the Dragonborn is recruited, the Thieves Guild still has many members throughout Skyrim. Because of this, a large amount of houses and dungeons have Thieves Guild symbols on them, known as shadow marks, that mean many different things like danger, safe, and guild-protected locations. Throughout the Dwemer Ruins and Blackreach, the player will find a variety of Falmer, the deformed and deprived descendants of long-lost snow elves. The Falmer are often found living alongside insectoid creatures known as Charas. Charas were originally supposed to be mounts for the unused Falmer rider enemy. Heimskr is a priest worshipping the ninth divine Talos and is frequently found in front of the Shrine of Talos in Whiterun. After the Civil War questline is complete and the Imperials have defended Whiterun successfully against the Stormcloaks, he can potentially be found in the Dragon's Reach dungeon. Eric the Slayer, the young adventurer to be in Rorikstead, is based on Eric West, who went by the scream name Emok the Slayer, who was given a tour of Bethesda Studios set up by the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Eric never saw the release of Skyrim, but the studio was so impressed by his extensive Oblivion knowledge that they gave him a character in the game. Winterhold is a run-down and snowed-over hold in the northernmost edge of Skyrim, its only redeeming feature being the College of Winterhold. Despite being a shell of its former self, Winterhold still has its own town guard, but apparently they don't have the manpower to spare to even guard their own prison. Winterhold Prison is guarded by Frost Atronox, making it the only prison not guarded by city guards throughout Skyrim. The Daedric artifact Wabbajack, obtained from Sheogorath, is based on the Jabberwocky by Alice in Wonderland author Lewis Carroll. Many similar themes in the quest Mind of Madness follow Carroll's themes of madness throughout his series of novels. The Daedric prince Sheogorath is theorized to be the protagonist to Oblivion, due to the ending of the Shivering Isles DLC naming the hero of Kvatch the new Sheogorath after returning the original back to Jigalik. He can also be quoted saying,
You know, I was there for that whole sordid affair. Marvelous time! Butterflies, blood, a fox, a severed head, ho ho ho, and the cheese! To die for.
Throughout Markarth, there are many encampments of Forsworn, a clan of half-Bret and half-Nords who fight for control of the hold, the strongest of which being Briarhearts. With enough stealth, the player can actually pickpocket Briarhearts from Forsworn Briarhearts, killing them instantly. This may prove difficult as Briarhearts have some of the highest perception in the game. Occasionally when wandering many different areas of Skyrim, the player may potentially get held up by a robber who demands gold or blood. However, if the player is wearing Nightingale armor when the thief approaches them, they will give the player money instead of taking it from them. The Night Mother's Truth is a novel containing details of the Night Mother, her ties to Morag Tong, and other shady guilds. The author of the Night Mother's Truce, Gaston Belafort, can be found in the Spider Pit of the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, presumably due to his research getting him caught by the Dark Brotherhood. The owner of the Hunting Brew Meadery, Sabjorn, has a bottle of Blackbriar mead under his bed. This is strange considering Hunting Brew and Blackbriar mead are rival companies, and the owner of the Blackbriar Meadery, Maven, even gets the player to sabotage the meadery in an early Thieves Guild quest. Throughout Skyrim, there are many areas marked as mammoth camps, most of which are inhabited by both mammoths and very powerful giants. But sometimes, it's just wild mammoths. One minor difference between wild and tamed mammoths is wild mammoths don't have engravings on their tusks, while giant tamed ones do. During the opening of the game, while being led to your execution, the Nord Ralof laments about his life before capture and briefly mentions,
Wonder if Velod is still making that mead with juniper berries mixed in.
Velod's mead with juniper berries mentioned can actually be found when returning to Helgen's remains after the dragon attack. Escaping Cidhna Mine via the Silverbloods will prompt Thonar Silverblood to give you a silver family ring and say,
The Silverbloods pay their debt.
in reference to the quote, a Lannister always pays their debts, from Game of Thrones. The man Hamlin underneath Hunting Brew Meadery is a reference to the German legend of the Pied Piper of Hamlin. The Pied Piper, or the rat catcher of Hamlin, is the tale of the town of Hamlin's rat problem and how a man and a flute lured rats out of town. But when the town refused to pay for his services, he used the same method to lure children out of the town. The White Gold Tower is somewhat modeled and textured far south of Skyrim, as so is the rough terrain of Cyrodiil. It's unknown why. Maybe at one point in development the player was supposed to end up there, or maybe due to Oblivion taking place in Cyrodiil, this is the developer's way of paying homage. If the player goes to Blackreach and reaches the debate hall, then shouts unrelenting force at the large yellow orb above, they will summon Vulthuriel. This dragon is a reference to Smaug from the Tolkien novel The Hobbit, as they're both dragons that live in a dwarven city before being awakened to wreak havoc. During the main quest, the player helps Delphine, one of the last remaining members of the Blades, gain passage to Skyhaven Temple. This temple houses a mural known as Alduin's Wall, a depiction of the prophecy of the return of the world-eating dragon. Alduin's Wall not only prophesizes the return of Alduin, but alludes to previous events in Elder Scrolls games, like the Oblivion Gates. The Bannered Mare is an inn and tavern located in the heart of Whiterun, and is owned by a Nord woman named Hulda. When asking Hulda about the inn, she says she's ready to retire, and may sell the establishment to Ysolda, another young Nord woman. Though this never happens naturally, Ysolda can become the owner of the Bannered Mare if Hulda is killed, after completing Ysolda's caravan quest. If not, then Miguel the Bard becomes the owner of the inn. Sovngarde is basically Nord heaven. If an honorable Nord warrior dies in combat, they are given an eternity to live alongside other Nord heroes in the Mead Hall, the Hall of Valor. The statues in Sovngarde are never explained in-game where they came from or who carved them, but the looming monks face the Dragonborn when looking away from them, and also crumble when near Alduin after he is defeated. Steel plate armor is a popular set of heavy armor among Nord warriors, being seen on Uthgerd the Unbroken and even Jarl Balgruuf. Steel plate armor has the words Nord plate when transcribed in Daedric on the brow of the helmet. Blackreach, the interconnecting series of tunnels and underground caverns lit up by mushrooms and minerals, is considered outdoors by the game itself, so summon dragon shouts work, as well as daylight vampire debuffs. Despite being one of, if not the largest enemy in the game, dragons don't leave a lot behind other than a massive scuff in the ground when they eat absolute shit. Dragons don't leave footprints behind, other than their initial landing after being up in the air. Different quest important characters can end up in Sovngarde at the end of the game, depending on what quest lines have been wrapped up before the final showdown with Alduin. Ulfric Stormcloak and Galmar Stonefist can be found if they lost the war. Stormcloak or Imperial soldiers, Legate Ricky if the Legion lost the war, Froki Wedded Blade, Svafnir Bard to Olaf One-Eye if Tending the Flames is complete, and Kodlak Whitemane if he's cured of lycanthropy. If the player is level 80 or higher, they may be approached by a large red guard named the Ebony Warrior, who requests a fight to the death with the Dragonborn, as he seeks eternal glory in Sovngarde. The player can choose to go to the last vigil and face off against the very powerful enemy. The Ebony Warrior actually does not appear in Sovngarde, despite dying in battle at the end of the quest, the Ebony Knight, maybe due to him being a Redguard and not a Nord or Admoran. An ongoing joke among fans of the Elder Scrolls is the amount or lack of voice actors. With such a large game filled with hundreds of quests and hundreds of characters, of course there's going to be some overlap, and a lot of the voice actors record the same generic lines to be assorted to non-important characters, but sometimes there are lines unique to certain voice actors. For example, the phrase is only used by characters voiced by Michael Goh. In response to the complaint about the minimal voices in Oblivion, Bethesda hired over 70 different voice actors and designed each NPC to only have voice lines from the same actor consistently instead of changing voices halfway through a conversation like the previous game. Sovngarde is a plane of existence in Aetherius, the origin of Aedra known as the Divines. This area of the immortal plane was created by Shor, the husband of Kyne, and designed to be reminiscent of their homeland of Skyrim and Atmoria, so much so that the constellations of the Thief, the Mage, and the Warrior appear in the sky above Sovngarde. The Dragonborn DLC takes place mostly on the island of Solstheim in Morrowind, and the plane of Oblivion known as Apocrypha. Apocrypha belongs to Hermias Mora, the big void of eyeballs and tentacles known as the Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Memory. Mora actually makes an appearance before the Dragonborn DLC was released during the quest Transmuting the Transmundane, but he didn't have a distinct appearance. The game was updated to change the Mystic Void in the quest to a familiar nightmare fuel we've come to know upon the release of the Dragonborn DLC. Jarl Balgruuf is the leader of Whiterun Hold and resides in Dragon's Reach, a large building designed to trap dragons built overlooking the rest of Whiterun. But a dragon isn't the only thing Dragon's Reach is housing. The Ebony Blade, a weapon owned by one of the Daedric princes known as Mephala, is hidden underneath the keep and is the main focus of the quest, the Whispering Door. Jarl Balgruuf was originally supposed to be killed during this quest by request of his son, who would have been replaced by Hrongar as Jarl of Whiterun. Skyforge existed long before the rest of Whiterun. The first settling companions discovered the monument, and Jorrvaskr Mead Hall was built right next to it. Eventually, corresponding buildings sprang up throughout the years, forming the Whiterun we know today. Dragon shouts are combinations of Dovazul words, known as words of power, used by the Dragonborn by learning the word from word walls and using the knowledge from a dragon soul to use its power. Most of these dragon shouts consist of 3 Dovazul words. The more words in the dragon shout used, the more powerful the effects. The only dragon shout with more than 3 words is used by Mirak to kill a dragon instantly and absorb their soul for restoration. Skyrim has a long history of honoring the dead, and obviously so due to the amount of burial tombs and houses of the dead sprinkled throughout the holds. Many of these ancient tombs are home to puzzles, treasure, and a slew of undead Nords known as Draugr, whose eternal slumber you are disturbing. In Old Norse, the word Draugr means spirit, undead, or ghost. The more the player scours throughout dungeons and tombs, the higher ranking the Draugr they face become. High-level Draugr will often laugh at the player and their followers during combat. When roaming the roads at night, the player can occasionally encounter a headless horseman between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. When following this apparition, the players will often find themselves at Hamvir's Rest, a tomb between Hallmark and Whiterun. This is a reference to the Washington Irving novel, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. With a high enough smithing level, the player can take those precious dragon bones and scales they've been gathering and craft them into powerful dragon plate armor. We talked about armor engravings in a previous fact, but this one's a little bit different. The dragon plate armor has a Dovazul inscription on the armbands that reads Jonah Loeb. Jonah Loeb is a character artist at
Bethesda. Bethesda worked pretty hard to create Dovazul as a language that can be translated and understood as well as spoken and written, as seen in the main theme of Skyrim, which is sung in this newly designed language. The Dova language is even designed to look like scuffs and scratches, as it's a language dragons would have carved roughly into stone with their claws. Many people believe the famous line,
"I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee."
is a reference to a similar line in the novel Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. However, Emil Pagliarulo, the one who originally wrote the line, states he just made it up as part of his writing process and didn't draw any inspiration from the book. On November 11th, 2011, the day of Skyrim's release, Steam calculated over 230,000 concurrent players, and within 2 days of the game's release, 3.4 million copies were already sold. 59% on Xbox, 27% on PS3, and 14% on PC. A testament to its popularity, 30 million copies of Skyrim have been sold since November 2016, 5 years after the game's initial release, and the game is currently available on 6 different platforms. Many professional artists draw real-life inspiration into their work, and the same is true for artists working in the professional field. An example of this being Jonah Loeb basing the appearance of the Giants on his own father, Jim Loeb. The Black Hand from the Dark Brotherhood questline might be based on the Black Hand organization responsible for the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which attributed to the beginning of the First World War. The word Garrett in Dovazul means thief, in reference to Garrett, the main character of the Thief series of games. Another reference or nod to the series is Mercer Frey, the leader of the Thieves Guild, has the same voice actor as Garrett in the original Thief games, Stephen Russell. When creating the dragons in Skyrim, character animators and artists studied the flight patterns and behavior of flying animals like birds and bats to give a more realistic and believable look to the way their dragons behaved in game. Another thing they studied was recordings of the tale of Beowulf in Old English to give a general feel of how they would develop the spoken aspect of the dragon language. The idea behind Skyrim's main theme was to have the Elder Scrolls theme only sung by a barbarian choir in Dovazul. The idea was pitched to Jeremy Soule, the main composer, in 2006, before Oblivion's release. A choir of 30 sung the song, and the track was lapped over 3 times, turning 30 people chanting in Dovazul into 90. The new hardware of next-gen consoles and high-end PCs paved way for the new monster designs and behavior within Monster Hunter World. Before a monster is even visually designed, the team decides what type of fight the creature would put up, whether they fly, spit poison, or breathe fire. Then from there, working alongside environment designers, the team began to build a visual aspect of the monster. This method was used during production to make a more believable feel to the monsters. Monster Hunter World is the 5th installment in the Monster Hunter mainline series, but isn't called Monster Hunter 5. Series producer Ryozo Sugimoto stated in an interview with VG247, "I think when you get a series that runs for quite a few years, the numbers start to get bigger and bigger, and it starts to become increasingly off-putting for somebody who isn't into the series already. They may think, am I going to try Monster Hunter 5 when I haven't played the first 4? What if I don't get it?" The title Monster Hunter World was chosen to express the way the living ecosystem functions within the game. Basically, the developers worked on creating a seamless world that appeared to function even without the player by removing loading zones and creating a more dynamic interactions between creatures, monsters, and players alike. The PC version of Monster Hunter World was released later than the PS4 and Xbox One versions because the Monster Hunter team had never really internally developed a game for PC before, so more time was requested for the Steam release of the game. The PC port of the game wasn't even started until after the console version was finished. Monster Hunter World developers avoided adding loot boxes due to it potentially interfering with the challenge reward system the game's known for, as well as potentially causing friction between players. Sugimoto stated in an interview with US Gamer, "We want to make sure nobody is under the impression that because it looks like the kind of game where you might have loot boxes, they definitely aren't in there. We want people to just enjoy our great gameplay loop of achievement satisfaction, where there are tough challenges, but learning how to play the game and getting better at it, you'll be able to overcome those challenges." The Legiana, and more specifically its wings, are actually based on an airplane. Director Kanami Fujioka explains, "There are many different parts of an airplane's wing, parts that can move up and down to increase or decrease speed. If you look at Legiana's wings, you'll see that it's not just one solid wing, but it's actually several different wings, which allow it to do things like speed up, slow down, and dive bomb, all strong inspirations that came from thinking about airplanes." The Nergigante has over 1,000 horns around its body that can each be individually lost or regenerated during a fight. It is thanks to new hardware of high-end consoles and PCs that these type of enemies can exist within Monster Hunter World, as each thorn exists independently on Nergi's body.
Monsters are designed before the gear you receive from them is. Something developers take into consideration is how the parts of the monster you defeated and carved would work as armor and weapons. The first gameplay demo was first completed in November of 2015 and showcased during the GDC Monster Hunter panel in 2018. It showcased many of the same gameplay features present in the final product, like scout flies, mounting, and the tracking system, but also demoed the use of darkness in certain areas that went unused ultimately. The original use for Bright Moss was to help players explore these dark areas by providing a fireable source of light. Though the demo video played at GDC showcased the Lagiacrus, the final game did not have the electric water monster present. What developers learned from the demo is that the Lagiacrus's large and long body would have been too costly to produce correctly, and decided it would have been best to leave the monster out of the final product, as well as any future DLC. The GDC video also showcased the monster Anjanath, a new addition in Monster Hunter World. Presumably from this footage, the Anjanath was the first designed monster for Monster Hunter World. Gajalaka are tribes of small humanoid creatures that are hostile towards hunters and monsters, often attacking them when aggravated. The colors of their masks actually correspond with the ailment they inflict. Blue is sleep, yellow is paralysis, and purple is poison. One of the major changes in Monster Hunter World is to focus on online play, and how the distinction between offline and online play is non-existent in this installment, whereas in other games the player would have to create a lobby for specific quests. Fujioka has stated, in the past, something as simple as internet connectivity wasn't something you could really rely on for the player base at large. Now it's kind of the default to assume that everyone can connect online. So now that's our basis for creating this online game. We've introduced things like voice chat and other methods of connection in the game that allows for immediate communication while you're hunting. And it's not just about relying on other players, but also being able to get into the game by yourself and having voice tutorials that don't stop the action as you play. The monster Behemoth was added to Monster Hunter World due to a collaboration with Final Fantasy XIV. As it turns out, this is a collaboration almost a decade in the making, as producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV, Naoki Yoshida, is actually friends with Ryozo Sugimoto. Yoshida stated in an interview with VG247 regarding the rework of Final Fantasy XIV. When I made that announcement, Mr. Sugimoto was kind of angry, almost. He was worried about my career. He was asking, "Are you sure you want to move forward with this?" It was as if he was thinking about it as his own problem. He was so concerned and so caring for me about it. But at the same time, he understood that if I was serious about rebuilding Final Fantasy XIV, it was my decision. And so he offered. He asked if Capcom or Monster Hunter could do anything to help. And that's kind of the catalyst. The Final Fantasy XIV and Monster Hunter collab was planned before Monster Hunter World's game announcement. Naoki Yoshida was given the opportunity to have dinner with Konami Fujioka about 3 years before the game's release, where they discussed the potential collaboration. While designing the Behemoth in Monster Hunter World, Naoki Yoshida made sure to let the design team make the parts breakable like any other monster. This is to avoid any player backlash, as fighting a monster with unbreakable parts may seem like Final Fantasy XIV's team doesn't want the Behemoth to take visible damage. Devil Joe is referred to as Pickle by the handler in-game, in reference to the popular fan name given to the Brute Wyvern. Other nicknames for monsters include the B-52 Bomber for Basilgoose, and my personal favorite, Dodogama, aka the Best Boy. Capcom's top 3 largest selling franchises are Street Fighter, Resident Evil, and Monster Hunter. While the first 2 games had worldwide appeal, Monster Hunter was only really popular in Japan until the release of Monster Hunter 4U, and especially gained worldwide notoriety after the release of Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World became Capcom's highest selling game at 7.5 million units before the release of the PC version on August 9th of 2018. Back in 2014, there was a temporary attraction at Universal Studios Japan that featured animatronics of Monster Hunter monsters, most likely due to the series' massive popularity in Japan. Also, 2 years prior, there was another animatronic of a gold Rathian at Universal Japan. The Rotten Vale appears to be a giant corpse of a Dalamotter, a large elder dragon introduced in Monster Hunter 4. The top of the map appears to be the creature's skull, an area in the Vale that looks like the creature's spine, and many of the zones are covered in effluvium, a gas that comes from dead elder dragons that eventually becomes crystal. The last monster the player has captured will be asleep on the platform in front of the main gate. Despite being at the top of the food chain in Wildspire Waste, Diablos and Black Diablos are actually herbivores. All Black Diablos are female Diablos in heat, making them not a true subspecies of monster like Azur Rathalos. According to Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, Kushala Daora can shed its skin when it becomes rusted. Kulve Taroth's design is based on the Greek mythos of the ram with a golden fleece. The winged golden ram was known as Colchis and was the holy ram of Zeus. Devil Joe's constant hunger is caused by a massive amount of body heat, speeding up the monster's metabolism and causing it to starve constantly. When Kirin appears in the Coral Highlands, a thunderstorm becomes visible in the sky. Early concept art of Anjanath shows him marking his territory. The Gyros and Great Gyros monsters have developed gills that allow them to breathe effluvium in the Rotten Vale and convert it into oxygen, like a fish in water. Odogaron's back will actually glow after it's eaten. Male Baroths have larger crowns on their head than female Baroths. Baroth uses mud as armor during combat, but outside of fighting, it uses it to stave off the heat in the Wild Wasteland. Anjanath is the only brute wyvern with feathers. Young Geratodus are said to eat by entering prey via a wound and eating them from the inside out. They also have spikes on their gills to prevent them from being pulled out. This may be based on the Kondaru, a parasitic catfish found in the Amazon, known for entering wounds and, other places. Basilgoose aren't seen until high rank because by the time the player has reached that point in the story, Zora Magdaros has upset and scattered them by reaching the Elder's Recess. Rathian and Rathalos compete with one another in the wild, the winner getting to live in the forest and the loser having to live out in the wastes. The Monster Hunter World Iceborne DLC is going to be adding a dynamic difficulty, meaning the difficulty will change as players join and leave, and will also be adding a 2 and 3 player difficulty rather than the current single or multiplayer difficulty. When a monster is poisoned, they are drained of their health based on their resistance to the effects, and each time the monster is afflicted, it requires more build-up damage of poison to trigger the poison status. The same applies to paralysis. Mounting is considered a status effect by the game, similar to paralysis and poison. As such, in order to trigger a mount, the player will have to deal a certain amount of altitude damage before a mount is triggered. It is possible to block or dodge roll through roars, preventing the player from being staggered briefly. This technique requires very precise timing, so you're better off getting equipment with the earplug skill. Though it's a satisfying tradition to watch the camera cut away to the flailing body of the monster you just defeated, the player may find it unnecessary and just wants to cut right in right away. All the player needs to do is press pause to cancel the cutaway camera. Poogie isn't entirely an aesthetic pet, but can actually help the player find hidden items. When successfully doing the petting minigame with Poogie over the course of a few quests, the pig will eventually jump in the air with excitement and allow you to pick them up. Carrying them around will occasionally cause the controller to vibrate in certain areas, and placing down your pig friend will cause them to dig around for a hidden item nearby. With the Witcher crossover event, Capcom wanted the mission to feel like a quest right out of The Witcher 3, and paid close attention to detail when combining the dialogue and combat for the quests. This crossover is also unique in that it's not a limited time quest and can be repeated. The name Xenojiva has both Greek, Hindu, and Jain origins. The word Xeno in Greek means alien, and Jiva in Hindu and Jain means a being with life force. This name comes from the fact that Xeno fell from the heavens as the Sapphire Star. Kirin has the most variations of any monster: low rank, high rank, tempered, and arc tempered. Using a bow with attack boost 4, critical eye 4, weakness exploit 3, critical boost 3, someone actually managed to defeat Nergigante in under a minute by repeatedly wall jumping and firing into the monster. According to the lore of Monster Hunter World, the first fleet was sent to the New World 40 years before the events of the game, with about 8 years between each of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fleets respectively. Some notable English voice actors in the game include Eden Regal as the handler, Jameson Price as the commander, Matt Mercer as the field team leader, and Xander Mobus as the 2nd Fleet Master. Since the very first Monster Hunter, players have sworn that there's an in-game mechanic known as the Desire Sensor. Basically, if there's a piece of armor or weapon the player is working towards, the game is less likely to give you the required material, making the player have to repeat fights in order to get the drops they need. This system is entirely speculation, and there's no evidence pointing towards this system existing within the game. But admittedly, it does feel like it when you've been grinding Azure Rathalos for 3 weeks.
Minecraft's first build was only showcased as a demo video by creator Marcus Pearson, aka Notch, in May of 2009. At the time, the game was known as Cave Game and only contained 3 blocks: air, grass, and cobblestone. Cave Game then became Minecraft, Order of the Stone, before finally settling on just Minecraft. The textures used in the Cave Game build and early versions of Minecraft were taken from Notch's previous game, Ruby Dunk, a building game mechanically inspired by Dwarf Fortress that never saw any kind of release. The main inspiration for Minecraft's initial design was a game called Infiniminer, a procedurally generated game developed by Zachtronics Industries where teams of players would dig for minerals to gain points for their team. A month after its release, Infiniminer's development was ceased after many modders would create different modified builds of the game, eventually making it too hard to maintain for the indie developer. The Creeper was originally just a programming error. While designing the pig mob, Notch accidentally set the wrong dimension values for the body and head, unintentionally designing the game's most recognizable enemy. Notch was so amused by this mistake that he designed the mob around this look. Daniel Rosenfeld, aka C418, is the main sound designer and composer for Minecraft. Rosenfeld is technically not an employee of Mojang, and technically still owns the rights to the music used in Minecraft. Because of this, he was able to release 2 albums featuring music from the game. Many of the sound effects used are heavily distorted versions of their original recording. For example, the sounds the Endermen make are just people saying hello reversed and distorted. The sounds the Ghast makes is actually Minecraft composer C418's cat. C418 creator Daniel Rosenfeld wanted his cat to be the voice of the ocelots in the game, but after accidentally recording the cat being disturbed in its sleep, Rosenfeld decided to distort the sound and use them for the ghastly Nether mob. There was originally planned to be a sky world to counteract the Nether similar to the popular Aether mod. Instead, Mojang released The End, where the Ender Dragon fight takes place. The Minecraft title screen has over 350 splash text that are random or reference pop culture. There's one hidden splash text that can only be seen if the splash.txt file is deleted. It simply says missing note in reference to the game-breaking glitch in the first Pokemon game. The company behind Minecraft, Mojang, was sold to Microsoft for $2.5 billion in 2014 to ensure that Minecraft would appear on Microsoft hardware. Due to the large amount of money Marcus Pearson received in 2014, he was able to outbid Beyonce and Jay-Z for his current home in Hollywood Hills for a whopping $70 million. Peaceful mode Minecraft removes the hunger system, gives the player regeneration, and removes hostile mobs from spawning, but doesn't prevent every mob from harming the player. Iron golems and wolves are the only mobs to become hostile in peaceful mode. Endermen tend to leave the player alone unless attacked or stared at. If the player is wearing a pumpkin on their head, they can stare at an Enderman without provoking them. The blocks in Minecraft equate to about 1 meter per block, meaning the chickens would be approximately 3 feet tall in real life. It is easier to catch fish in the rain. Minecraft physics work differently in the Nether than they do in the regular overworld. For example, water dries up, lava blocks flow 7 blocks instead of 4, and beds explode. Snowballs can be obtained by shoveling snow and crafted into snow blocks or thrown. Snowballs may seem useless when throwing them at mobs and other players, but they actually deal a heart and a half of damage to blazes. Similar to how cows can be milked with a bucket, mushrooms can be milked with a wooden bowl to get mushroom stew. Suffocating, drowning, burning, starving, falling, poison, the void, and harming potions don't damage armor. Endermen have the innate ability to teleport. Because of this, it's impossible to hit an Enderman with an arrow, egg, snowball, or any other projectile weapon. Though pumpkins can be generated in any biome given there is room for them, they are actually relatively hard to find. Pumpkins are actually more rare than diamond blocks, with 3.7 diamond blocks per chunk on average, and pumpkins only have a 1 in 32 chance to spawn per chunk. Due to the way graphic layering works in Minecraft, water, ice, and nether portal blocks can't be seen through other water, ice, or nether portal blocks. This is why the player can't see each individual water block when looking at a body of water. Sheep tend to spawn in herds of 4 and can be a variant of colors like white, black, brown, gray, and pink. Most sheep will spawn white, but the rarest sheep is pink. Pink sheep only have a 0.164% chance of spawning in a herd. Swords can be used to break melons and cacti faster, whereas axes can be used to break pumpkins faster. If an animal mob is burned to death, or killed with a weapon that has a fire enchantment, they will drop their cooked meat instead of raw meat. Further into the game, the player can eventually start brewing their own potions with various effects. Potions of hurt and potions of healing have the opposite effect on skeletons and zombies. The most notable feature of spiders and cave spiders is that they can climb up almost any vertical surface. I say almost any because spiders can't climb ice blocks. Wooden pressure plates and buttons can be activated with arrows. It is possible for a creeper to become a charged creeper if they are struck by lightning. Charged creepers have double the explosive power of the regular creeper. When a light source like a torch or glowstone block is next to ice, the ice will melt. Redstone and natural light are the only light sources that will not melt ice. Upon booting up the game, there is a 1 in 10,000 chance that the title will instead say Minecraft instead of Minecraft. Some interesting behaviors in ocelots include tamed ones sitting on chests, leaving the player unable to open them, having them sleep in the same bed as the player, and not taking fall damage. Creepers are afraid of ocelots, and will avoid them if they are in line of sight. If a splash potion of invisibility is used on a spider or enderman, their eyes are still visible. This is because the eyes are on a separate layer than the body in order to give the glow-in-the-dark effect they have. There are many methods to mine out areas in Minecraft, the most effective being TNT mining. Unfortunately, this method isn't the best for gathering materials as TNT explosions destroy 70% of blocks and resources dropped. The government of Denmark recreated the entire nation on a Minecraft server, including accurate cities, roads, and facilities. Unfortunately, griefers blew up many towns and built American flags on the remains. Unlike regular zombies, the sword-wielding zombie pigmen don't take damage from fire, lava, or the fire aspect of enchanted weapons. When the player has a wolf as a companion, they will attack almost anything that damages the player or the player attacks. Creepers are the only mob that tamed wolves won't attack when provoked. The eggs are able to be thrown because a player said he would eat his USB if Notch added the feature. So in version beta 1.0, the ability to throw the eggs was added, but there is no record of the requester eating the USB or not. When eggs are thrown, they have a small chance to spawn a baby chicken. There is a 1 in 256 chance that an egg will spawn 4 baby chickens at once. Though a diamond sword is the most powerful sword in the game, a fully drawn bow actually does more damage than an unenchanted diamond sword. According to Mojang developer Jeb, the way the Wither boss is initiated was inspired by Terraria and the summonable boss mechanics used in the game. The very first mob added to Minecraft was the now removed human. The human was a hostile mob with the default Steve skin that wouldn't drop any items. A stack of 64 ores, food, or any other smeltable items will take exactly 10 minutes and 40 seconds regardless of the item being smelted. The only way to make it smelt faster is to create multiple furnaces to share the workload. When the player travels to the nether, they will find a hellish landscape covered in netherrack and soul sand. If soul sand is brought back from the nether and placed on the ground, skeletons and zombies walking on it won't burn up during the day. Zombies can pick up any weapon or item and wear any set of armor they find on the ground and won't despawn with unique items. The player can force a creeper to explode by using flint and steel to ignite it, similar to how a TNT block can be activated. Lava can burn any and all items in the game, making for many unfortunate circumstances when mining. Lava can actually be used to the player's benefit, as arrows shot through lava catch fire and deal fire damage on impact. After defeating the Ender Dragon, there's a mysterious teleporting egg left behind. This egg can actually be obtained if the player drops it on a torch or uses a piston to push it. The Victor Rydberg Elementary School in Stockholm, Sweden introduced Minecraft into its curriculum. A teacher at the school, Monica Ekman, has stated it's their world and they enjoy it. They learn about city planning, environmental issues, getting things done, and even how to plan for the future.
The GameCube's original codename was Project Dolphin during its development. This codename even went on to inspire the name for the GameCube and Wii emulator. In order to prevent piracy, Nintendo opted to use their own type of disc like Sega did with the Dreamcast. They opted to use discs over cartridges due to the cartridge's lack of storage space. Because of the size of the GameCube discs, it only holds 1.6 gigabytes of storage, meaning features present in a GameCube port of a game had to be removed or extra discs needed to be included. As at the time, Xbox and PlayStation discs could hold up to 8.6 gigs of data, but despite its seemingly small capacity, a GameCube disc can actually hold 190 times more data than an N64 cartridge. The Wavebird is a GameCube controller that connects to the GameCube through a receiver via radio signals. This controller is technically the first wireless controller, before the technology was popularized by other home consoles via Bluetooth. The shiny texture used in the GameCube startup screen is the same texture used for reflective models in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Due to its heavy third-party support, the GameCube has a library of 657 games before being discontinued in 2007, the last of which being Madden NFL 2008 on August 14, 2007. The GameCube is the first Nintendo console to not feature Mario as a main playable character in a launch title. The GameCube intro jingle has 3 variations, one normal, one with the controller holding down Z, and the third with all 4 controllers plugged in and holding down Z. There's an exclusive to China GameCube called the Panasonic Q, which came out as an agreement for Panasonic to develop disc technology for Nintendo. Unfortunately, low sales of the Q resulted in the console being discontinued in 2003, only 2 years into the GameCube's life cycle. The GameCube has an image of a dolphin on its processor, and reference to its codename. Also, the GPU is named Flipper to go along with the theme of the codename. There's 2 different models of GameCube, the DOL-001, made before May 2004, and the DOL-101, made after May 2004. The originally released model, the DOL-001, was able to use component AV cables, progressive scan display, and a second serial port. On top of that, the Nintendo GameCube nameplate on the top could be removed. While none of these features came to the second model, the DOL-101, the updated console instead had a firmware update to disable action replay and other cheat codes, upgraded the disc reading laser, and comes with a 48-watt AC adapter, 2 watts higher than the original GameCube. Before being officially discontinued in 2007, the Nintendo GameCube sold 24.7 million units during its life cycle. Nintendo contracted the system logic and graphics processor for the Nintendo GameCube, codenamed Project Flipper at the time, from a company called ArtX. At the time, ArtX director Dr. Wei Yen had created the design for the Nintendo 64's processor while working at Silicon Graphics. Himself and 19 other Silicon Graphics alumni formed ArtX, creating the team credited for the GameCube's internal mechanisms. The name Nintendo GameCube was revealed at a press conference in Japan in late August of 2000, being abbreviated to NGC in Japan and GACN in North America. At this press conference, Nintendo unveiled 15 software lineups set to release along the new console. This included Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2. Nintendo had been working on designs for motion controls before the GameCube was even released. Plans for a microphone with a headphone jack were also patented and prototyped, but the motion control features weren't seen until the release of the Wii. Before the release of the GameCube, Nintendo had been working on their handheld console, the Game Boy Advance. Because these 2 consoles were being worked on at the same time, Nintendo opted to use resources to postpone late N64 games and opted them for early release GameCube games. This includes games like Rare's Star Fox Adventures, which was originally going to be an N64 game. Because the GameCube and Game Boy Advance
Advance were worked on in tandem at Nintendo, there's a few games that cross over. Games like Zelda 4 Swords and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles gave the option to plug in a Game Boy to the GameCube via a link cable and use them as controllers. Nintendo's original marketing for the GameCube included the phrase, "the Nintendo difference," in an attempt to establish the console as separate from the other competitors. GameCube's launch price was $199 USD, $100 less than the competition at the time. In February of 2007, Nintendo announced that it will be discontinuing support of the GameCube in order to focus on manufacturing and development effort for the new Nintendo Wii and DS systems. According to ArtX Vice President Greg Buchner, the GameCube was designed to be geared more towards developers than players, with affordable, easy-to-use hardware. The technology behind the GameCube disc's copy protection was developed by Panasonic Corporation, which at the time was known as Matsushita Electrical Industrial. The GameCube was Nintendo's first attempt at moving away from cartridge-based software, which is why they contracted MEI to produce the technology. Just like the N64, the Nintendo GameCube was designed with many color motifs. While the indigo color was their main advertising and selling model, the company also released a jet black model. They would later sell a Platinum Limited Edition GameCube and a Japan-exclusive spiced colored one. The GameCube had actually released with stereoscopic 3D technology, but unfortunately, 3D televisions weren't widespread at the time. Despite the feature not being commonly used with the console, the launch title Luigi's Mansion supports stereoscopic 3D. A common complaint about Nintendo's N64 controllers was the pain it would cause because of the joystick. In order to combat this, the GameCube's joystick was designed to have a large replaceable rubber tops for prolonged play. The GameCube's best-selling title, Super Smash Bros. Melee, sold 7 million copies on the console, and is even still a widely played tournament game to this day. Out of the GameCube's 657 game library, 8 of them support network connectivity, 5 with internet support, and 3 with local area network. The 5 that use internet are Phantasy Star Online Episodes 1 and 2, Phantasy Star Online Episodes 1 and 2 Plus, Phantasy Star Online Episode 3, Homeland, and Jikyo Powerful Pro Yaku 10, a Japan exclusive. Though many of these games stopped being supported officially, there are still fan-run Phantasy Star servers that players can connect to. The 3 GameCube games that use LAN are all racing games: 1080 Avalanche, Kirby Air Ride, and Mario Kart Double Dash. Using tunneling software through a PC, these games can still be played via LAN. The GameCube was not released with out-of-the-box network compatibility, because third-party developers were responsible for their own online experiences. This is how games like Mario Kart Double Dash can still be played via LAN. Before the GameCube's release, there was a tech demo featuring an explorable version of Princess Peach's castle. This demo was later leaked online. During its first week's release in Japan, the GameCube sold almost 300,000 units, and during its launch weekend, the GameCube sold 100 million in products in North America. Nintendo had projected that they were going to sell 10 million GameCubes by March 31st, 2003, but fell just short of 9.55 million. The Nintendo GameCube controller is such a well-received design that it's supported in every major Nintendo console since, primarily used for Super Smash Bros. To accommodate for the playstyle required for the Phantasy Star MMO, there was an officially licensed GameCube keyboard. The keyboard functions as both a keyboard and a GameCube controller, requiring 2 controller slots to use, and supports both Latin and hiragana characters. Nintendo only released 3 official memory cards for the GameCube with storage sizes of 4 megabits, 16 megabits, and 64 megabits respectively. Because of this, there are many third-party developers that have created their own memory cards with much larger file sizes. While designing the controller, Nintendo opted to use the handlebar design popularized by Sony's DualShock controllers. Similar to the Xbox controller, however, Nintendo designed the 2 joysticks to be diagonal from each other and not straight across. The reason the A button was designed to be the largest button is that many games would use it as their main action button, and players would associate the green color with success. Because of the large file save sizes of games such as Animal Crossing and Pokemon Coliseum, games would often be sold with a 4 megabit memory card alongside them, and included their own custom stickers. As of December 31st, 2009, 208.57 million copies of GameCube video games have been sold. The ambient music used in the background of the GameCube's BIOS menu is a slowed-down version of the Japan-exclusive Famicom Disk Drive's jingle. The GameCube has the most controller redesigns out of any Nintendo console during its production. Zelda Twilight Princess was released for the GameCube at the same time as the Wii version. Because most players are right-handed, the entire game is mirrored for the Wii version, as Link is a left-handed swordsman in the GameCube version. Zelda Wind Waker is a puzzle game that takes place in a flooded version of Hyrule, with many known landmarks and locations being their own island. Much how there was a DS island in Phantom Hourglass, there was plans for a GameCube-shaped island revealed in the art book Hyrule Historia. Resident Evil 4 was originally supposed to be a GameCube exclusive, but due to lackluster sales, Capcom opted to release the game on other systems. The name of the island in Mario Sunshine, Delfino, is likely a reference to the GameCube's project name, Dolphin, as the name sounds like dolphin and the island is shaped like one. There was once a GameCube service disc used by Nintendo World Class Service to diagnose problems with the GameCube and its peripherals. Many of the discs seem to have been returned and destroyed, making it an incredibly sought-after collector's item.
At Space World 2000, it was announced that there would be a memory card for the GameCube that would have expandable memory via SD card. Though this never came to fruition, there was another memory card released with Animal Forest E Plus that utilized this feature. Animal Crossing for the GameCube is a direct port of the Japanese-only game Animal Forest E Plus for the N64. The game is loaded entirely on RAM due to its small size, so while the game is being played, the GameCube disc can actually be removed. The only character to not make their playable GameCube debut in Super Smash Bros. Melee was Luigi. There are unused icons in the GameCube version featuring Mario, Luigi, Shy Guy, and Yoshi from the Mario game series in the files of Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex. The GameCube isn't actually a cube. Its dimensions are 6 inches long, 6 inches wide, but only 4.3 inches tall, making it a rectangular block instead of a cube. There is alternate music used in demo versions of Thousand Year Door for E3 and the multi-game interactive demo disc for the title screen. It's still in the game's retail disc, despite not being used. Admiral Bobbery's early design was actually a camo soldier, but this was changed to more of an old haggard pirate to fit the theme of the chapter, The Key to Pirates. A small toad in Petalburg will talk about his favorite video games throughout the course and after the chapter, Castle and Dragon. First, he will talk about Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. Then, he will mention Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. Finally, he'll tell you he's playing Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door and tells you that the ending is worth playing the game all the way through. In German versions of Thousand Year Door, the far outpost is called Grossostheim. This is a reference to the German city Grossostheim, which is where the Nintendo of Europe headquarters is located and where the game was localized. In Spanish versions of Thousand Year Door, Rock Hawk is named Hawk Hogan, in reference to Hulk Hogan, one of the most prolific wrestlers from the 1980s. The house in the back alley of Rogueport's main square originally had a toad-shaped chalk outline and undried blood on the floor, in the Japanese version of the game. These markings were removed from the North American version of the game, removing the implication of a murder at the residence. Lord Crump's theme has the sound of Pac-Man from the Atari 2600 dying mixed into it. One of the crows in Twilight Town talks about opening a real estate website called Luigi's Mansion, but his friend warns him against possible copyright infringement. This is a reference to the Nintendo GameCube launch title, Luigi's Mansion. When Peach starts up Grotus' computer, the screen that appears is actually the startup sequence from the Famicom Disk System. The disc also resembles one of the Famicom Disk System's game discs. At one point in the game, there's a chance that the parrot below Creepy Steeple will say, "Shine get," in reference to the phrase in the Japanese version of Super Mario Sunshine, for when a shine sprite is obtained. The enemy character Red Bones' name in Japanese is Barati Hononoko, which translates to Bloody Son of Bones or Bloody Dull Bones, which implies that the Koopa's shell was stained red from meeting a violent end. This name obviously didn't make it to the North American release. In the X-Naut Fortress, there's a changing room. If you drop into the room from the vent above, both Mario and all partners will turn into 8-bit versions of themselves, with the original Super Mario Bros. Music playing in the background. This effect is undone after the player leaves the room. The partners from the first Paper Mario for the N64 were all originally going to make cameos in Thousand Year Door, but this idea never came to fruition. However, Parakarry and Lady Bow do remain in the game, and make appearances at the very beginning and in Poshley Heights after completing the game. In the Japanese version, Vivian is actually the youngest brother instead of sister of the Shadow Triad. The Japanese text for Vivian as a party member reads when translated. One of the Shadow group, Vivian appears to be a girl, but is really a boy. This was changed in the international version to simply make Vivian a girl. Chapter 4, For Pigs the Bell Tolls, is a reference to the Ernest Hemingway novel, For Whom the Bell Tolls. The phrase For Whom the Bell Tolls refers to the church bell ringing whenever someone passes away, and in this chapter of Thousand Year Door, the church bell rings every time someone is turned into a pig. West of Rogueport contains an arcade run by the Don Pianta that employs a boo named Pika. In the Japanese version of the game, Pika wears bunny ears. This was changed to cat ears in the international release, likely to reduce any references to Playboy bunnies. There's 2 instant game over sequences throughout the game that can be triggered outside of combat. When riding the XS Express in Chapter 6, you'll have to find a diary for Ghost T. Before you leave, he warns you not to read it. If you decided to read it anyway, he'll come and kill you, giving you a game over. The second game over is at the very end of the game. The Shadow Queen possessed Peach will ask you to join her. If you answer, become her servant, you will get an instant game over. Junior Troopa from the first Paper Mario can be seen flying in the background of a postcard Mario receives from Zip Toad in an email. An early design for Vivian was much shorter and had a flame on the tip of their hat. Luigi's partner, Screamy, is based on the original design of the Smorgs. Early designs for Smorgs can be found in the game's files. The color of the Yoshi that hatches from the egg in Glitzville Pit depends on the amount of time that passes between Mario acquiring the egg and the point in the game where it hatches. The Yoshi is always green in official artwork, but can be red, blue, orange, pink, black, and white, so restarting the game multiple times yields different Yoshi results. An unused badge named Trade-Off still exists in the game's data. When used in battle, it will say rank up, and the player will be given more star points after the battle, but the enemies become harder to fight. An early Bonetail texture can be found in the game's data. The only difference is that it has a blue eye. In the final game, Bonetail doesn't have any visible eyes, only empty eye sockets. Though the XS Express engineer's name is not stated throughout the game, his autograph seems to read Carl, as seen during the chapter 3 Days of Excess, when you get his autograph for the young Bob-omb. The interior of Mario's house in the opening scene contains a full recreation of the bedroom as it was in the first Paper Mario, even though only the tiniest bit of it is visible in the opening. The color of each of the Shadow Sirens' hat matches the elements of their attacks. Beldam's hat is blue, so she uses ice, Marilyn's hat is yellow and she uses an electric attack, and Vivian's hat is red, and she can use fire attacks as Mario's partner. If the player looks through Professor Frankly's trash after fighting the Shadow Sirens, they can find Vivian's tattle, but not Marilyn's or Beldam's. This foreshadows that Vivian would join the party rather than fight Mario again with the other Sirens, as only tattles of one-time enemies can be found in the trash. Two names, help_A_access and help_door_access can be found within the game's files. They read, "Ha! I'm not telling you my secrets at the show, wait for the final version." These were used during an E3 demo version of Paper Mario that aren't present in the multi-game demo disc for the Gamecube. During the battle with Vivian, she can use Fiery Jinx when her HP is low. However, when Vivian joins Mario's party, she has to be super ranked to learn that ability and doesn't even know it yet. The fact that Ghost T resides in room 004 is a reference to Japanese and Chinese culture in which the number 4 is considered unlucky. The Japanese number for 4 is pronounced shi, and it sounds similar to the word death, which is also pronounced she. Tech is likely based on HAL 9000 from the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, based on its appearance and function as a space-based supercomputer in control of the facility, slowly becoming sentient. Thousand Year Door was originally going to be called Paper Mario 2. An unused Coming Soon image is present in the game's data. Instead of the game's final title, it uses the name Paper Mario 2, likely used before the title Thousand Year Door was chosen. In the Spanish translation of the game, Chapter 3 of Glitz and Glory is titled El Rey de las Luchadores. When translated, this means the King of Fighters, possibly referencing the King of Fighters series of games. The ringtone when Peach mails Mario is the title screen music from Super Mario World, as well as the Ice World theme from Mario 3 is the ringtone when Jolene, or Mr. X, sends Mario a message. In the Rogueport sewers, there's a bandit named Eddie the Mask. Eddie the Mask's name may be based on Eddie the Head, the mascot of the British heavy metal band Iron Maiden. It's impossible to lose the very first battle in the game to Lord Crump. Even if the player enters the fight with only 1 HP due to taking damage from jumping into the water, the game will increase the player's health to 5 at the start of the fight and only allow the player to attack or defend. At one point, the W emblem was going to be purple, implying that when Mario equips the W emblem, it was originally going to make Mario's clothes turn into Waluigi's clothes, as opposed to Wario's in the final game. The Happy Lucky Lottery isn't actually based on luck at all, but the date from when you bought the ticket, based off the GameCube's internal clock. 4th place can go anywhere between 4 to 10 days. 3rd place is 25 to 35 days, 2nd prize is 85 to 115 days, and 1st prize is anywhere between 335 days to 395. If you change the system clock to a day prior and went back to talk to Lucky, who runs the lottery, he'll know that the clock has been tampered with. You can either admit to it or lie and say you haven't tampered with it. However, either way, you'll need to pay 500 coins in order to have the lottery reset. Buying a new ticket won't actually increase your chances of winning at all either, but will instead reset the amount of days required back to 0. When tattling a Bob-omb named Fred in Far Outpost, Goombella mentions that he isn't very freaky for a Fred. This is a possible reference to the character Freaky Fred from the cartoon Courage the Cowardly Dog. At the dock of Rogueport, it's possible to make a splash effect appear on dry land. Simply uses Coop's ability to hover over the water and talk to an NPC at the same time. This glitch also works in Petalburg. The names Crump and Rock are in the random name selection of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, likely referencing the Thousand Year Door. In the Japanese version, Mario and his partners only get fully healed after completing Chapter 1. but they do not get healed after completing any of the other chapters. In the international version, however, Mario and his partners get fully healed after every chapter, other than Chapter 8 after they're completed. Francesca's name in the Italian translation of the game, Romoletta, paired with Frankie's translated name, Giuliano, is a reference to Romeo and Juliet. The opening of A Thousand Year Door is identical to the opening of the very first Paper Mario, right down to the letter being delivered by Paracari. Throughout the game, the player can discover hidden question mark blocks. There are a total of 15 throughout the game, and the optional companion Miss Mouse can help find them. Despite Hefty claiming that he can't get out of his own cabin, he can in fact be seen twice not in it. During the chapter, The Key to Pirates and Keel Hall Key, Bobbery sacrifices himself so the crew can escape. Upon reaching him, he requests one last thing before leaving for the great beyond, a Chocola Cola. Chocola Cola is from Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which takes place in the Bean Bean Kingdom. Grotus' dialogue after his fight seems to have an error. If the player chooses don't attack, he will say, "Worm, you dare defy me?" even though the player is doing what he said. And if the player chooses attack, Grotus simply tells Mario to stop his blabbering. The responses appear to be reversed. An early version of Mario can be found in the Thousand Year Door's game files. This version is closer to the original Paper Mario N64 design. He has a thinner outline, lighter colors, and a black mustache, just like in the previous title. When Peach takes a shower in the X-Naut Fortress, she either sings the Mario Brothers theme or the castle theme from Super Mario 64.
Yeah.